What is up, party people? Welcome to the Week 2 episode of Tossin the Pigskin. As always, I'm your host, Nate Smith. I gotta be honest with you guys, this South Georgia humidity is kicking my ass. It's extremely hot outside, it's sweaty, it's miserable, it feels like a sauna. But videos still have to be made, picks still have to be made, and fantasy advice still has to be given. And I'm a man of the people, so I will deliver. Let's start by checking out how I did last week. We'll start with my betting record for week 1, which was 2-3. Not good, but not terrible. Gambling on the NFL, gambling in general, is very hard, and especially gambling on the NFL being that it's such an unpredictable league week to week. So for my first ever crack at publicly releasing picks with analysis attached, I'll take 2-3. I will. I'll take it. Just to recap, Ravens -5 was obviously a huge W as they slaughtered the lowly Dolphins. Lions -2.5 ended up being a loss as they tied the Cardinals. Bit of a heartbreaker because they were covering most of the game, but a loss is a loss. Falcons +3.5 against the Vikings was a massive L. The Vikings clobbered them. The Packers-Bears over 46 in the first ever game of the 2019 season on that Thursday night opener. That was a big L. That went way under. And we wrapped it up nicely on Monday night with Texans +7 in that very dramatic and compelling game against the Saints for a total of 2-3 for week 1. On the fantasy spectrum, I whiffed on my starters. Will Fuller and Christian Kirk both had very pedestrian games. 8.9 fantasy points for Fuller, 10.4 for Kirk. I split on my sit-em. Marlon Mack went off. I told people to sit him. Bad call. He's a very good player. Maybe don't sit him. I was right on Baker Mayfield, however, which was a risky pick, you could say. A lot of hype, Mayfield and the Browns this offseason, but he came in against a very good Tennessee defense and threw 3 picks and only amassed 9 fantasy points. Sleepers, I was 2 for 2. Mark Ingram balled out, over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground for 22.7 fantasy points. And my other sleeper was Austin Hooper, who hauled in 9 receptions for 77 yards for a total of 16.7 fantasy points. So fantasy, I did pretty good. But enough about last week. Let's get to this week, shall we? Let's kick it off with my week 2 picks. Pick number 1, Cowboys -5 at the Redskins. Truly, I was pleasantly surprised and shocked by how good the offense looked in their opener against the Giants. Now, it should be stated that I think the Giants are a very bad football team and will lose a lot of games this year and will probably be a bottom 5 defense as far as yards given up. But that being said, this Cowboys offense looks different. First year under new OC Kellen Moore. Dak finally looks comfortable, and the wide receiver weapons for the Cowboys are finally legit. With Randall Cobb, still a very good player, Michael Gallup emerging as a star, and Amari Cooper already solidified as one of the best wide receivers in the game. Dak has weapons. Not to mention the entire offensive scheme is just more complex. There's more pre-snap motion. It's not as predictable. They're throwing a lot more on early downs, which is harder to defend. Just overall very impressed with this Cowboys offense, and their defense played all right. I think they'll have better games this year, but the talent is there on defense too. Cowboys are a good team, and the Skins are not. They did play a close game in their opener against the Eagles, but in the second half it was really a one-sided affair as the Eagles took control at home and put the Redskins out of the game. That being said, Jonathan Allen, interior defensive lineman, and Darius Geis, running back for Washington, will both be out this week. Adrian Peterson is listed as a starter, and Vernon Davis is listed as questionable. I think that might be more of a precautionary listing. We might see Davis play in this one. But regardless, Skins don't scare me. I think the Cowboys are a really good team. Cowboys take care of business -5. Staying in the NFC East, I like the Eagles -2 at the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. The Falcons just struggled big time in their opener against a very talented Minnesota D line. Life does not get any easier this week, as the Eagles' D-line is probably just as good, if not a little better. They did just recently lose defensive tackle Malik Jackson for the year, but they still have Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham among a very loaded and talented defense. Also, the Eagles' offense is much better than the Vikings, in my opinion, and the Vikings move the ball at will against this Atlanta defense, so there's no reason Wentz and company will not do the same thing. Eagles, -2. Saints at the Rams. I love the Rams here at -2.5. The Rams got the win last week against the Panthers on the road. They hung 30 on that quality defense. And Goff didn't even play that well. He really didn't. So Goff playing average to poor. They still hung 30 on the road at Carolina, which is a defense full of very good players. That's impressive. Imagine what they can do on a good week with Goff playing well at home, playing a Saints team coming off a very emotional Monday night win. They're on a short week. They're traveling all the way across the country. I absolutely love the Rams here at -2.5. My next pick, Chiefs -7 at the Raiders. Yes, I know. Nate, did you hear? Tyreek Hill is out. Yes, I know, and I don't care. Chiefs are going to steamroll the Raiders by at least 2 scores. The fact that it's listed at -7 should be a crime. Vegas is going to lose tons of money on this game. I should probably stop hyping this up, because this is where it gets jinxed. Everyone hammers the Chiefs and the Raiders win by 40. That would not be a good look. In all seriousness, though, I do like the Chiefs here at -7. The Raiders did look much improved in their debut against Denver, but the Raiders got hit hard by injuries. Rookie safety Jonathan Abram, who played a lot in that opening game, is likely out for the year and will undergo shoulder surgery. And starting corner Garyon Conley is questionable with a neck injury. So you have two important players in that secondary that are not going to be there, most likely, for this game. I know Hill is out, but the Chiefs are still loaded with weapons. They got Travis Kelce. They brought in LaShawn McCoy. They got Damian Williams still. And Sammy Watkins really looked like a stud last week. You might see a guy like McCole Hardman step up in this one. Doesn't matter. Mahomes is going to win MVP again. The Chiefs can't be stopped. Chiefs -7. Book it. Brings me to pick number 5 and the final one. Jaguars +9.5 at the Texans, and I believe this number will climb higher, so wait on it. Wait as close as you can to Sunday, because I believe this number will keep going up. My reasoning. 2 words, folks. Gardner Minshew. Jags quarterback Nick Foles breaks his clavicle in the first quarter of the opener on Sunday. What does Minshew do? The Wazoo grad comes in 22 of 25 for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Minshew's 88 completion percentage was the highest in NFL history for any player with at least 15 pass attempts making their NFL debut. I know that's a lot of words and might be hard to follow. It means he's good. I like Minshew, and I think this Jags defense responds after getting punched in the mouth by Kansas City. Also, the Texans are off an emotional loss against the Saints, and they played on Monday night, so they're on a short week. I just like the points. I think Jags could even get up to +10. Take the Jags, take the points, baby. All right, we'll close the show with a little fantasy time. Broke down the segment by just 1 player each this time instead of 2. I think it'd be a little simpler, make the videos a little shorter, easier to keep track of. My stardom, number 1, is Big Ben versus the Seahawks. Yes, I know Ben was terrible in his 2019 debut against the Patriots on Sunday night. Him and the entire Steelers team just looked awful. They got embarrassed. 33-3, the Patriots won that game. Ben's stat line, 276 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception for a whopping 9.7 fantasy points. That's not going to cut it, folks. The Seahawks are coming to town, and you might think, oh, Nate, well, the Seahawks D is solid. We don't like this. Are they? I don't know if they're that solid anymore, guys, especially in the secondary. The loss of Earl Thomas is more impactful than people are giving it credit for. They just allowed a 400-yard day to Andy Dalton at home. I'll say that again. A 400-yard day to Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals. What? And you're telling me that Big Ben won't rebound at home? Come on. Ben's going to get it together. The Steelers will get it together. Still a talented team. That offense will get clicking. This one could get ugly for the Seahawks. Love Big Ben here. Sticking with quarterbacks for my sit-em. I'm just getting risky with my sit-ems lately. But we'll keep it rolling. Aaron Rodgers versus Minnesota. Now, depending on who you ask, that might not be risky, considering what Rodgers turned in his Week 1 performance last week. Just 203 yards and 1 touchdown for 12.9 fantasy points at the Chicago Bears, which is a very tough place to play and arguably the best defense in the league right now. It doesn't get much easier for Mr. Rodgers this week. Yes, he is at home, which should help a bit. But this Vikings defense just put the clamps on the Falcons. And I was just raving last episode how I thought the Falcons were going to be the best offense in football. Still technically have a chance to do that, but it's probably the Chiefs. Falcons could still get that number 2 spot, but they have a lot to prove because they only scored 12 points last week. This Minnesota defense held them to that. And honestly, if Minnesota held Green Bay to the 14-17 mark, I wouldn't be shocked. I think you got to sit Aaron Rodgers this week. And last but not least, my sleeper, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, Mr. John Brown. Last week, was targeted 10 times, had 7 receptions for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. Just a beautiful day for Mr. Brown. He seems to have solidified himself as the wide receiver 1 for the Bills. And they welcome a Giants defense. They travel to New York to play a Giants defense that just got toasted by Dallas. Dak had the best game of his career. I know Josh Allen is not as good as Dak, but the point is you can score on this Giants team, and after 1 week, they've given up a lot of yards over the air. I think that's all we have for you guys. That's the Week 2 episode of Tossin the Pigskin. As always, I'm your host, Nate Smith. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for Week 3.